Hello, everyone, and welcome again. My name is James Wright, and I am the Assistant Director for Parent and Family Engagement within the Orientation and Transition Programs Department. As you can see, I have my little son here. It is nearing his bedtime, so I have to improvise and do this session. But I appreciate you all for being here. I'm thrilled that you all have been able to make it, and I will be moderating our Family Connect today, Academic Success and Fall Planning. This UD Family Connect was developed to allow faculty and staff time to connect with families so that students can be well supported during this time. We will give a 40 to 50-minute presentation by topic experts. For the remaining 10 to 20 minutes, families will be able to submit live questions in the Zoom Q&A feature. I encourage families to hold their questions until the presenters finish their content, as we may already answer them. My fellow panelists designed this presentation. Today, we will focus on advising and academics. We will hear from a few of my colleagues, Maura Curtis, who is a Senior Academic Advisor for the University Studies Department, and Dawn Vogt, who is the Academic Success Coach for the Office of Academic Enrichment. In this informative session, families will have the opportunity to hear from experienced UD faculty and staff who provide a detailed overview of the academic support resources, important deadlines, and tutoring services available to students. This session will cover various topics to ensure that students receive the necessary support to excel academically, and you as their families know those options as well. After their presentation, we will then transition to questions and answers. Families using Zoom's webinar feature may submit typed questions at any time within the Q&A section of Zoom. However, as I already said, we encourage you to wait for our presenters' content as they may answer your questions. Questions may also be answered live by our panelists or within the text chat by a selection of my colleagues. The combined answers for our live Zoom webinar, as well as our Q&A feature responses, will allow us to answer as many questions as we can within the time provided. With that, we'll talk a little bit about our agenda today. Next slide, please. So we're going to discuss a little bit about academic advising, some important deadlines, things for you all to know for the betterment of your student. We'll talk about class registration and what that looks like. We'll discuss advising appointments and how your student can set up those advising appointments. And then we'll discuss some registration resources. We'll then move on to the Office of Academic Enrichment section, where we'll discuss tutoring services, some academic workshops, and some skill building courses to help your student be successful. At the very end, as I said, we will then move on to our questions section. And with that, I thank you all again for being here. I'm ready to hand it off to you, Maura.
Thanks, James. And thank you to all the families that have taken the time to be with us tonight. Again, my name is Maura Curtis, and I'm a Senior Academic Advisor in University Studies. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with University Studies, or UST for short, our office provides academic advisement to UD students who are undeclared. Typically, that's between 15 to 20% of each incoming cohort. Additionally, we also advise students who currently have a declared major but are transitioning to a different program at the university and therefore have to know a little bit about every major on campus. Next slide. In the time I have tonight, I would like to first spend some time talking about the role of advising at UD and how we support students. I'll also provide some recommendations on key times we recommend that students connect with their advisor. And then finally, I'll also discuss the process of scheduling appointments with their advisor and advising resources. And finally, I'll wrap things up by talking about the registration process, which includes key dates, winter session, preparing for registration, and finally, registration resources. As part of UD's commitment, we ensure that all students are assigned an academic advisor to assist them during their time at UD. Advisors collaborate with faculty, assistant deans, academic coaches, and other colleagues to support students. Advisors help students identify their academic goals, clarify degree requirements, which can be pretty complex, and we connect students with university resources. I frequently talk with my students and encourage them to utilize advisors as an initial point of contact. In many instances, even if an assigned advisor doesn't have the answer or doesn't specialize in a particular area of need, we make it a point to connect students with appropriate resources. So here's a tip. Encourage your student to reach out to their advisor if they have a concern and aren't necessarily sure where to start. We welcome questions, and if we can help in any way, we're happy to. In instances we aren't able to assist because it's not within our purview, we will always be happy to connect students with applicable resources. For example, math is not my subject. Many students look for math tutoring like calculus. I'm not going to be one to try to tutor them in that, but I will help connect them to the tutor that can help them there. For this final bullet, we recognize that students are adults and advisors respect their right to make decisions. So we do make it a point to share with them that they are ultimately responsible for their academic choices and ensuring that they adhere to academic policies and procedures. We are here to support students and to provide clear information to assist them in the decision-making process. Students can view advisors as partners in helping them achieve their short-term goals, which might be success in a particular class or declaring a major, as well as longer-term goals, which might be pursuing a graduate degree or gaining admission into law school or medical school. Next slide, please. While advising at UD isn't mandatory, we do encourage students to connect with their advisor each semester. Typically, this is done through email messaging and scheduled appointments. I do want to make the point that while we frequently outreach to students, we do rely on them to follow up and schedule the appointments. In saying that, here's another tip. As parents, I recommend nudging your students at these key times throughout the semester and asking if they've been in touch with their advisor. The first is the add drop period. This is the first 2 weeks of the semester. During this time, students are finalizing schedules and making changes. In a perfect world, though, students would have already connected with their advisor prior to the start of the semester. But in the event that hasn't happened or they've made changes to their classes, it's recommended that they check in with their advisors to make sure the classes they have are still meeting academic guidelines. As I noted earlier, it's not uncommon for students to change majors or determine a different path, and that's okay. And in those instances, especially if they've made changes to their schedule, connecting with an advisor is a great idea. During week 7 and 8 is also a great time to connect with an advisor. By this point in the semester, students have completed assignments, taken an exam or two, and this is a good time to check in regarding their academic progress. If a student is struggling with a class, advisors can provide recommendations and connect them to some of the resources Dawn will be sharing with you tonight. This might be an opportunity to discuss course registration changes if needed, including withdrawing, changing a class to audit or listener, or pass-fail. And the deadline for making those changes is in the 11th week of the semester. Lastly, the third time we recommend a student check in with their advisor is prior to registration. Typically, this is during week 8 to 13. This is typically considered a pre-registration advising an appointment, and it's a time for students to talk with their advisor and discuss courses for the upcoming term. These meetings might also provide opportunities to talk to students about internships, study abroad, potentially adding a minor, or other ways to enhance their undergraduate experience. Another tip for you. Students should schedule this appointment prior to registration actually opening. All students are provided with a date during which they are given access to register for classes. This is called their registration appointment, but it's not an actual appointment with their advisor, but just the time that the system will open for them to register. If they allow this date to arrive and they haven't yet talked with an advisor, they may have difficulty securing an appointment with their advisor, as this is a busy point in the semester. And as with the case with many professions, calendars do fill quickly. For this reason, advisors generally have a window that extends over several weeks during the semester to which students can connect with us. The earlier the students schedule this meeting, the better. So for example, although spring registration access won't begin until early November, most units will begin appointments several weeks prior to that. In university studies, we start them as early as the beginning of October. And we want to do this to ensure students have adequate time to schedule and meet with their advisor prior to registration opening. If your student hasn't heard from their advisor, though, by week 8 or 9, we recommend emailing their advisor to see how they are scheduling. Next slide, please. Since we encourage students to connect with their advisor each semester, it probably goes without saying that students need to know who their advisor is. It is an important step to identify their assigned advisor. Students can access the name of their assigned advisor in UDSIS. In most instances, advisors will have appointment availability loaded into the Blue Hen Success platform, BHS for short, and students can easily select a time that fits their schedule and connect with their advisor. If their advisor doesn't have availability in Blue Hen Success, or they use a different approach to scheduling appointments, I would recommend that students email their advisor for information on how to get an appointment scheduled. Next slide. In preparing for advising appointments, all UD students with a declared major have access to what we call a degree audit. A degree audit includes a listing of the requirements students need to satisfy in order to complete majors and minors. It's a really helpful tool, and it encourages students to review. We encourage students to review this prior to their advising appointment. Although undecided students do not have access to a degree audit, we do have a tool in UDSIS called a what if report. Students who are also transitioning from one major to another or adding a minor can also use the what if report feature as well. This tool allows any UD student to enter an intended major they may be considering or a minor, and the system will generate a degree audit. Again, this audit will demonstrate how the courses they have taken meet requirements for the selected major and or minors, and it also provides a list of courses that they still need to complete. Degree audits and what if reports are a great tool, and we use them with students all the time. Students can also review four-year plans in the undergraduate catalog. Our goal at UD is for students to finish in 4. So tools like the degree audit and four-year plans can be helpful in working with students to remain on track for timely graduation. We encourage students to ask questions with respect to their plan and any courses that need to be completed. Next slide, please. So using advising resources. Advising Central is one of the best resources both students and parents can use when it comes to advising at UD. On this website, students can access Blue Hen Success to schedule appointments, learn about majors and minors, get instructions on how to register, learn about transfer credit, and a whole lot more. There are also academic tools like the GPA calculator and links to the undergraduate catalog and information about policies. So while we frequently tell students that they are responsible for knowing this information, we realize it's impossible to commit all of it to memory. So as advisors, keeping students informed is also about showing them where to locate the information they need. And this website is such a great one to start at. It's advising.udel.edu. Next slide. So shifting to registration. Registration is a point that many people wonder about. So I'm sure it's something that you all are already thinking about and when it actually happens. Here you can see some of the key upcoming dates regarding academic deadlines and registration. So October 13th is when students will see midterm grades published in their UDSIS account. October 23rd is when winter registration will begin. Again, this is the beginning date. So your student will be assigned a specific date and time in their UDSIS account. November 6th is when spring registration starts. And again, they will have an appointment time for that as well. And then lastly, we talked about that 11-week deadline for making grading changes or withdrawing from classes, and that is November 13th. Next slide. Winter session is a great opportunity for students to either get ahead or catch up in credits. Some students like to take a harder class during this time so they can focus solely on that, while others will look to take something that they can use to boost their GPA. There are many reasons students will sign up for winter session, and we encourage students to talk with their advisors if this is something that they're interested in. Winter class schedules tend to be published in October closer to the registration time. Next slide, please. Things that students should do prior to registration coming up include they can view their registration appointment on UDSIS. They will get an email when these are published, but we do encourage students to check it regularly. Students can also schedule an appointment through the Blue Hen Success platform with their academic advisor to be prepared and ready for their registration appointment. And then lastly, make sure that they do not have any holds on their account. There could be a hold for many different reasons, including student financials, student health, required training programs like alcohol EDU or no more, and students will not be able to register if they have a hold on their account. So we encourage them to check early and often to make sure they're cleared for their registration day. Next slide, please. When it comes to viewing and planning classes, we have a few tools that are super helpful in the process. Courses Search is one where it will list all the course offerings and details about the courses being offered each semester. Students can look up specific classes by name, or they can search entire categories like the breadth requirements on Courses Search. When they search this, they'll see details about all the classes, the name, date, time, professor. They can get a course description, all from this one website. Another tool that's super helpful is the web registration and Blue Hen Planner. Web registration is the system students will use to actually register for their classes. But the tool that they really want to use is the Blue Hen Planner. Blue Hen Planner is one tool used to make mock schedules. So you can go and put in different classes, different times, all of that into the Blue Hen Planner and save your favorite schedules. On a student's registration day, if all their classes are still available, they can import the schedule from Blue Hen Planner into web registration and register for all of their classes there. While Blue Hen Planner is a very helpful tool, it is just a planning tool and not the actual registration system, and it doesn't save them seats in any of the classes. Students can only use Blue Hen Planner for the fall and spring semesters. For winter and summer, they'll just use web registration to schedule their classes. Next slide, please. After registering, students should review and verify their schedule. So in web registration is where they can view their schedule. There will be two different views. The first view is the list view, where it will give all the details on the class. So the title, the name, the instructor, the time, the location, the dates of the class are all in detail view there. They can even hit the plus sign and see the course description of the class. The other view is the weekly calendar view. This is where they can see a snapshot of what their week will look like in one spot. Both of these views are super helpful for students to use and to know that they are registered for their classes. Next slide. As I wrap up my information for today, I want to point out that there are many resources for students when it comes to registration. The University Registrar's website is a wealth of information, not only for registration, but also for other academic information like the very important academic calendar. Students on this website can have videos and tutorials on how to register for classes, how to use Blue Hen Planner and WebReg, but it also shows them the degree audit and advising tools and how to FAQs and questions around anything related to registration, wait lists, anything along those lines. So that is all my information for today. Thank you for attending this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to Dawn.
Hi, I am Dawn Volpe. I'm an academic success coach in the Office of Academic Enrichment. We are here to support student success and help students do the best they can in their classes. We approach this goal in two ways. One is that we provide peer tutoring for many of the classes that students take in their first and second years at UD. And we do that in several formats: individual tutoring, drop-in tutoring, peer-led study groups, and the PASS program. It might be good to go to the next slide while I'm listing these. Thanks. The second way we support students' academic success is through support for development of academic skills and approaches that are generalizable to all their classes. We do this through academic coaching, academic skills workshops, and by teaching courses for which students can register in the fall and spring semesters. I'll explain each of these services in the following slides, just a little more. So thank you. So individual and drop-in tutoring. Students can choose to make individual appointments with a peer tutor. The benefits of this format are that the student knows they will have a one-on-one focused session for about an hour, and there will be no other students present and kind of asking questions or the need to wait. Students also can choose or prefer to attend drop-in tutoring. This takes place on a set posted schedule for the entire semester. And the benefits are that it's free and it does not require arranging ahead of time. Students can decide to consistently attend each week for regular review and practice in a course, or they can decide at a certain time that they really need to talk to a tutor and can just check out the schedule to find when their course is covered and show up. Next slide, please. We have study groups and the PASS program. So study groups are they're the ability to ask a peer tutor to join an existing study group that your student may be part of. So if your student is part of 4 to 6 students who meet and discuss material in the class or work on studying, they can request to have a peer tutor join them and kind of help them, especially when they may be preparing for an exam coming up or have a certain assignment due where they could use a little help understanding concepts. So this is not an ongoing thing, but something that is available kind of when needed. Our office will search for a tutor for the requested class, and that can take a couple weeks. So we ask that students request this well ahead of when they need it. Our PASS program is quite different, and it involves having peer tutors who may be sitting in the class in that current semester, but have taken it before and lead a scheduled weekly study session. They can help with understanding the course material. They communicate with professors through the semester. And it's more than just having sort of a question and answer, although it's sort of a question and answer format in a way. They may have planned activities that are specific to the material covered that week. We really encourage that if students think they have know they have this as, from their syllabus or their Canvas course or their professor, that they do attend that, because it's a way to get in another time during the week where they practice the information and review, which is important for learning. And another kind of separate way we approach helping students in their success is academic coaching. This is one-on-one support, and that means we kind of meet and talk about developing their success through their approaches, their learning strategies, and their habits that can help them do well in all their work. We have academic success coaches who will meet individually and talk through individual strengths, concerns, specific classes, what resources there are on campus. And we take a holistic approach to understanding what's relevant and helpful to students, and we strive to ensure they're taking care of themselves, have the resources they need, and know academic strategies that work. We can meet up to once per week with students, or just once, depending on what seems needed and what a student prefers. Students can make appointments for academic coaching in Blue Hen Success, just like they can make appointments with their academic advisors or find the individual tutor appointments I mentioned earlier. Next slide. Academic skills workshops are something we provide each semester, and they are specific to the topics you see here, where we address to hopefully a group of students all at once, not individually, but topics that we try to gear to the timing of the semester. So we begin with a create your calendar and suggest ways students may want to organize their time and what to work into that calendar. We talk about time management more specifically in another workshop, note-taking, what to do with those notes and how to review from them and continue learning. And the rest that you see here following kind of the rhythm or the pattern of the semester, kind of ending with finals prep. Skill building courses. The last thing I'll describe today is these 1-credit skill building courses that students can register for in their fall and spring semester. So they can include this as part of their schedule. And they may find that an academic advisor suggests one of them based on their course of study or their progress so far, or they can choose it on their own at any point. And you see here we have study skills that focuses on those generalizable skills that I mentioned in the workshop slide. There's critical thinking that has more to do with evaluating information and applying logic, and specifically kind of geared towards humanities and courses that involve writing. And then the problem solving course a little bit kind of on the flip side, focused on more like math and science problem solving. So in our next slide, I'll just mention that our goals here are to help students manage and succeed in their academic work and develop rewarding overall experiences while they're here. We hope to see your students take advantage of our services, and we're always available to answer questions. And we often let them know if they're not sure where they're supposed to ask a question, they're perfectly welcome to be starting with us, and we'll figure it out if it's not our answer to give. Our contact information's here. Please feel free to use that. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Dawn. And with that, we will move into the question and answer portion. So I already see that we have some questions already coming along the way. So if you all wouldn't mind either screenshotting or taking a picture or writing down that information that you see on the screen, we will have the screen up for the next couple of minutes and then go back to it after our questions. So with that, Dawn and Maura, if you wouldn't mind turning on your cameras, we're going to start off with some questions. And then I'll start off with the first one, and then you all can feel free to answer it appropriately. So I think this is a fun question because I hear this a lot. If a student is not satisfied with their advisor, can they request a different one?
So I can't say 100% yes or no on this question because it is dependent on the program and college that a student is in. Some programs only have one advisor where others are multiple ones. So it will be dependent on the department program if this is available. I'd encourage your student to reach out to the assistant dean's office or department if they're with a department advisor to see if there is another option if they're looking to change.
Thank you. And this question is regarding honor students. So how are registration dates and times assigned for the spring registration? Is there any preference given to honor students?
So registration times are assigned by credits earned. So seniors tend to go first, where first years are near the end because they have the least amount of earned credits. So honor students do tend to get an earlier time within their cohort. So if they're a first year student, they tend to be a little earlier in the first year cohort.
And then a follow-up to that, and you all may or may not know this, but do students receive aid towards winter session courses?
It would be dependent on each particular student's aid packages if there is funding for winter session.
Sorry about that. Once again, folks, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in. This is a question about the study skills course, but what topics are covered during those courses?
The study skills course, the topics kind of begin with creating a calendar for the semester and organizing time through the week. Most students in the study skills course tend to be first or second year. So often we're focusing on a bit of an adaptation from the way their time and their environment structured their day during high school and how that shifts or changes in college. So organizing time, setting up a weekly schedule for themselves and what to build in and work into that time is important. So we focus on that at the beginning. We move toward what I've missed is that we might begin with setting goals for the semester as well and kind of practicing getting used to the idea of setting academic goals for themselves. We would address learning strategies and kind of the science of how we learn, which explains why we have, why we recommend certain approaches in terms of learning strategies. Moving on to handling the larger volume of reading compared to their past experience and how to take notes from that, what to do with those notes, how to take notes from a class or lecture format. And again, how to continue reviewing, preparing for tests, preparing for finals, which is a little bit of a different animal in that there are so many things happening at once. And some other topics in between, depending on the semester and the students in the course, they kind of drive the need a little bit too as we get to the end of the semester.
Thank you. And then a follow-up question, is the PASS program only offered for specific classes?
Yes.
And how does a student find out if a class has it?
So each semester on our website, there will be a list of courses covered through the PASS program. So that's on our website, through their own course. Each professor has the ability to design how they communicate information, but it should be clear on the syllabus, in their Canvas information, and hopefully the professor also verbally states it a time or two, and maybe even introduces the peer mentoring class, etc.
Perfect. And then question about meeting with their advisor for winter. Does a student need to meet with their advisor in order to register classes for the winter time?
There's no mandatory advising at the University of Delaware, so no, but a lot of times that winter session class conversation registration will happen at the same time as the spring course registration. For example, when I work with a student, we go through all of their course options for winter and spring at the same time, and then see if there's certain courses that might be better to take in winter over spring semester.
And I think this is a great follow-up question for communications with students, since this is more so geared towards family, but we have a question that asks, this is all great information. How do you all communicate this to students?
A lot through email. So especially for anything advising related, there's emails that go out all throughout the semester around those key dates that I talked about earlier in the session. We send campaign messages to students. So this is one of those that we really push students, hey, time to come meet with us. Spring registration is coming up. So there's a lot of email communication through students. Also for first year students who are in a first year seminar this semester, there's a lot pushed through that class, as well as reminders for registration and access to resources, and even one-on-one conversations with students that I'm sure Don will also agree with, in saying like, hey, have you talked to an academic coach, or have you used tutoring, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
Perfect. For the next question, are there academic success coaches for hire that can help students with executive functioning skills, such as meeting once a week to set up a calendar or anything of that nature?
Well, this is what we do, and we are not for hire. You don't need to pay us for that. So that's part of the deal with academic coaching. A lot of students don't take us up on it, but I would say each semester there are at least 10 or 15 students with whom I will sit for about a good hour and work through the whole week. And, from morning to night, when are you going to sleep? When are you getting up? What are you going to do at 8 o'clock? What are you going to do? How about 8:30? When are you working in the review for your history 106? What kind of reading do you need for that? Where does that fit in your week? So pretty specific. You mentioned executive functioning. We don't, there are programs that are super intensive out there at other places. We don't have, what we do have is the ability to be, you mentioned, once a week. We also have an ADHD, et cetera, sort of study group. And that's to be seen on our website. Someone asked what the website is, and it was on a slide, but it's ae.udel.edu. If you see under our services, there are some drop-down options. There is a link to the ADHD study group, as we call it. There is no need for producing documentation or diagnosis of any sort for this. We also intended to cover kind of other executive functioning difficulty students may have, whether that's prioritizing, planning, task initiation, filtering distractions, staying on task. And we have 4 sessions. We've been expanding 4 sessions throughout the week, each week, starting this week on Tuesday, but students can still join. And we meet for about an hour, although students can, in most of them, in the in-person ones, stay for another 30 minutes, because we've had students want to stay and do work together. This is a concept called body doubling that in the field of all this kind of research will say that it's productive for students. We begin by connecting, letting students talk to each other, get some kind of ideas from each other sometimes, and some support. And then we talk about a bit of a topic for a few minutes or so, and then we move on to letting people get work done. So a few options that may be helpful for your student.
And I've seen a couple of questions about this in our Q&A, so I'll ask it here. How often should students reach out to their advisor, and when should they start to reach out to them?
I don't think there's ever too many times to reach out to your academic advisor. As I said, like, we are a great starting point with any questions and concerns. So I have students that will email me multiple times a day, where I have others that maybe contact me once a semester. It really is dependent on the student. And it depends on where they are in the process. I have some students that are ready to start talking about majors and getting into majors and courses for future, where others aren't ready for that just yet, and they will connect with me a little closer to the registration time. So I don't really think there's any wrong amount of times to connect with your advisor. I do think making sure you connect with them at least before registration is really great, because we want to make sure you're staying on track as best as possible. I'm also going to go into a second question that's related to this that I saw, and it was asking about how to help your student if they're a little anxious about connecting with their advisor and talking with their advisor. I think the main thing is to make sure your student knows that we are on their side and we're here to help them. So I think sometimes if they're just not sure what to ask, brainstorming questions they might have, I have students constantly be like, okay, my mom told me to ask you these questions, and pull out their phone with a text message of questions, or they'll create a list on their own. And I think it maybe is just sometimes I have students that meet with me just to get to know me and so that they feel comfortable the next time when they do have actual questions. Most advisors also offer both in-person and virtual appointments, so students can choose the format that they feel most comfortable in to have that conversation. And I know some students, if it's sitting on their bed, they're a lot more comfortable, where others, like I'm an in-person person, I love to talk to someone face to face. And there's students that do prefer that format. So we do offer both. And I think it's just really, having that conversation with your student prior to see maybe what questions they might have so they feel prepared going in usually will help with a lot of that.
Thank you for that. Trying to find a good question here. I think I had one. Yes. So, Don, this might be more so for you. Can you explain more about the PASS program? Is that something that is already set up by the professor, or is that something a student initiates on their own?
It is something that is established within a course before a semester begins. People in my office, I'm not particularly connected with it, but people in my office are working very hard to continue expanding. So we have more offerings each semester. It is listed again on the website under PASS and on our website, but also should be communicated through the students' class information, Canvas, their syllabus, the professor. So it is something that just exists and should be made clear to students. If students want to know or they don't feel they know, they certainly can ask the professor or a TA or tell them to send me an email. It's DVOLPE. I'll certainly answer that and make sure they know whether to look for it. And I am going to throw in a shameless plug for the fact that we have a note-taking workshop starting at 8 p.m. on our website. They're all virtual when they're in the evening like this. And in fact, this semester we are doing it that way because that's what we think students are attending. So if you have a student you want to let know about it, feel free. James, do you want me to, there were a couple other things I noticed, about how to pay for tutoring and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Go ahead. Yeah.
So for the drop-in tutoring, there's no pay. The individual appointments, there is a process, it kind of explained in the steps when they schedule through Blue Hen Success, but students pay directly the peer tutor. So that can be cash, it can be Venmo, it can be a direct way like that. Someone mentioned, there was something else about drop-in, I need to find it. Someone mentioned about something about Math 113. A little bit about how the availability of peer tutors works is that we take students who've taken the courses and want to tutor, which is, we want them to want to see your students, and we give them some training. We have professors saying, yes, the student would be good at helping others with this course. They did well in my course. 113, often there are fewer sections of it. There are fewer students, therefore, who have taken it, and fewer students who are looking to apply with us and help people with math. And so that makes us have fewer people. We have one person on the drop-in schedule. And I looked for it when I noticed that question, and it is, I'm sorry, Mondays between 4:30 and 8 in our building. That is Jamie. So we can find that on the drop-in schedule this semester. I see that the math lab, which is not connected to us, the math lab does not cover it. So the other opportunity for when you look for individual tutors, this might sound silly that I don't know all of the individual tutors we have, but there's a whole lot of reasons for that. When students sign in to Blue Hen Success and get assistance and tutoring and walk through those steps, the options for their courses in which they're enrolled this semester will show up for them. So I see one tutor in the drop-in schedule. Your student might find a different option also in the individual appointment process.
Gotcha.
The note-taking webinar, since there's actual interest, let me hop on that. If you go to ae.udel.edu, you will find under our services and academic support, dropping down, you will find workshops. There's a schedule for each one of them. You find 913, we're already at 913, and there's a Zoom link there.
Thank you for that, Don. I think that was a lot of helpful information for families. I know that there are a couple of questions about all of that information. So um, there was a question about talking about math labs and writing labs. How do those work?
So the writing center is and the math lab are all individual of each other. I will touch on the writing center. Students can go onto the writing center's website and schedule appointments with a writing tutor. They can have this be synchronous or asynchronous. These students take courses to be trained to be writing tutors and can help students with any point in the writing process for any type of writing assignment. I don't know, Dawn, if you want to say more about that or the math lab.
With the writing center, we just the only other thing is we encourage students to keep in mind that they can make these appointments for not just I've written my assignment, I'm early, I can get some feedback or a proofread before I submit it. They can start at the beginning of the process to say, here's my assignment, I'm having trouble organizing my thoughts, or these are some of my thoughts and I'm not sure where to go from here. And so they can talk through this sort of out loud or with somebody and get some advice on organizing an assignment. So it's more than just a proofread. The math lab, again, it's through the math department, a bit separate from us, but my understanding is that it is a great place to go do work for the courses that are covered. And there is somebody there to answer questions. I'll say about our website, again, ae.udel.edu. When you go across the top of the options, you get to other resources. There you will find a few other places on campus that offer support, academic support and tutoring. It can be a little bit scattered because sometimes within departments, they offer some specific things. So there are some other things there, including the Writing Center and Math Lab, if you're looking to find their website and kind of find their specific contact information or process for scheduling or directions.
Perfect. There was a question about paying again. So I just think for everyone, Don, if you want to kind of reiterate, what do students have to pay for? What don't they have to pay for?
It's easy if I answer it this way, so I appreciate the question being put that way. The only thing that students pay for in our office is the individual appointments with peer tutors, individual only. And that is $14 if the peer tutor is an undergraduate, and I would say 99% or more of the time they are undergraduate tutors, so $14 is the amount. Once in a while, we have a graduate student providing some tutoring, and that would be $16, but it's roughly the same.
Thank you for that. There's a question in here about point of contact for honor students. So should the student's first point of contact be the advisor or the honors program advisor?
I think it depends on what the question is. If it's about anything regarding the honors program, because being in the honors program requirements that way. If it's honors specific, they should go to honors. If it is overall their schedule or planning for the next semester, advisors have knowledge of what the honors program requirements are as well. So they should go to their program advisor for that pre-registration advising.
All right, and folks, for ease of access, I did place the Office of Academic Enrichment's website in the chat. So if you needed it, you can go click on that. There's a question specifically about accounting. Who can my student contact for an accounting tutor? His teachers say that there isn't a tutor for accounting 200. I know it's a very specific question.
I know. I saw the question and I started looking around at the drop-in schedule, and I don't see it on the drop-in schedule. What we have for accounting is 207, 208, 327, and 315. It's a bit odd to me to see that and not 200. Again, it depends on the students who are looking to work and that we can hire and make available. A separate note, well, within Blue Hen Success, I mentioned the ability to make an individual appointment. You may find somebody, but if the professor knows there's nobody tutoring, they might be right. The other thing is on our other resources page on the website that James included, you will find the Learner College of Business and Economics tutoring. When I go to that page, I again don't see accounting 200 covered. So the College of Business is not providing 200. That said, if you are able to if you remember my email address, dvolpe@udel. In our office, what our coordinators work to do, if there's a request for a specific class and we don't have it covered, we go looking. We try to recruit a tutor. It takes a bit of time, and we can't promise we'll get them, but we will reach out to the professor to ask for ideas. We will sometimes run information to look for students that recently took it and have certain grades and ask them if they're interested. We really do work hard to try to find what's needed. But again, a bit of a process. And if it's early in the semester like this, we may be able to come out with an outcome that's useful to your student. If it's November 20th, it probably doesn't work then. But again, it's always a hope on our part.
We have a couple of tutoring questions, Dawn. I know that you stated this already, but how can students and families find information for tutoring services for their specific classes?
Is there a place I can put a specific link? Are we doing that in the chat, or would it be?
Yep, you can add it to the chat and just tag everyone.
Okay. My chat go away. I'm sorry, I'm getting there. It's coming.
No, that's fine. Take your time.
I've put in, so it's our site, ae.udel.edu, but also with the rest of the site, that's the specific page for the drop-in tutoring schedule. If you go to that, you'll notice that at the top, there's, our address and some information about how it works. But if you go down a bit further, you'll see different 4-letter designations for department names, like ACCT for accounting, ANTH, anthropology, and so on. You will find that there are some that are empty because these are all the categories and they are completed as they are appropriate for any certain semester. But if you, I know that if you go to Chem and Math and Bio, which is BISC, that might not be intuitive, you'll find a lot of coverage for the basic courses that are in the beginning of things. And it's not just those are reliably well covered. But some of the humanities types of courses, there's less of an opportunity for tutoring. It tends to be more in courses that are, I'm not sure how to describe the differences, but the harder sciences or others that require problems solving steps, things like that our tutors can really help with. And tutors, as far as their qualifications, I believe B is the grade they needed to receive in the class at least, but also the professor recommends them as a good resource and a potential peer tutor. And then once they apply and are hired, they are given a certain amount of training with any incoming kind of group to focus on kind of the helping approach to helping other students and knowing our resources on campus, knowing how to respond if there's a reason that they need to get a student that they're working with in touch with someone else on campus and things like that. Our workshops are generally not recorded. However, there are on our website, again, under workshops, lower than the schedule, there's an online self-guided set of workshops that is fabulous in the information that it provides. It's a bit outdated in its mode of presentation, and we are creating new ones that will go into Canvas tiles, but the information is good. So if you are interested in kind of a self-guided or off time walk through some suggestions on any of those topics, that is there.
And I don't know if you see that last one in there as well. Yeah.
It's a similar answer to perhaps the accounting 200. I just opened and don't see it. I agree with you. I don't see it in the drop-in schedule. We don't have a student available and who is able to work and help right now. It's possible if your student who is taking it goes into Blue Hen Success and looks for an individual tutoring appointment, they will find somebody in the individual appointment set of tutors. It's not mutually exclusive, but very different sets or pools of tutors. So it's a possibility. If they are not finding that and want to get in touch with us to try looking for it, we will try. You see some 300 level courses covered. Often we have more availability for the first couple 100, 200 levels of courses, because once students finish 300 and 400 level courses and are ready to come tutor for them, they're also graduating. or going on to internships and things like that. So we have much less ability to use our students to help others in those courses. It's just kind of a downside of the logistics.
All right, and I think as we wrap up here, I have a fun question for you both. If there's one piece of advice that you can give to any family member about the support of their student in their academic success, what would it be?
I think
I'll give
mine
you all
would
some time to think. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think mine would be just to encourage your students to reach out and ask questions. Like, they should never be afraid to reach out to someone. There's no, like, as I say, stupid question. And I think that when students do that outreach themselves, it shows such initiative. And honestly, there's so many people on campus that just want to help students and see students succeed. And as I said, like, I cannot help a student with calculus. Math is not my subject. But I'm more than happy for a student to come and ask me about that, and I can help get them connected to who they need to get that support.
Okay, I hope mine is a bit twofold. But I feel like Maura took my first one. The shift to doing things in college is not harder necessarily, but different. So going in with sort of eyes open about the need to organize time differently and do more things on their own initiative and fill in their white blank spaces in their calendars with some review and not just an assignment due is important. And so encouraging them in that and letting them know about it, go look for that kind of information, check with us about it. Some first year seminars will be addressing it. But on your part, ask them questions, ask them if they want to kind of walk through something out loud with you. I know they are adults officially they are 18, but they are still becoming more adult between 18 and 23. And this is a really big new step. So the support you give, you want to let them do a lot on their own, but if you can support them in doing that by listening, by prompting a little bit, by letting them know there are resources out there, just reminding, I think that's really helpful.
Thank you both. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
So that was our last question for today's Family Connect. As you know, it's time for my son to have his bedtime, so that is wonderful. I want to conclude our time by saying thank you to all our families and parents. We appreciate your patience and dedication to your students' academic success, and we see you all as partners. So thank you to University Media Services and my panelists. Your being here is important to our students and families. And as a note, this recording will be on the Blue Hen Family Hub in the next couple of days. I will be sure to share that out. If you do have any questions, please reach out to families@udel.edu. As another note, if you have not done so, please register for Parents and Family Weekend 2023. That will be from October 6th to October 8th. The link is on your screen. Please send any additional questions to that family's email. Thank you and goodbye. And baby James also says goodbye.